So I wanted to start with people keep asking us, when are schools going to open? I keep hearing these dates. I keep hearing mid-April. I keep hearing April 19th. So I do want to share with you that there is actually no calendar date yet for when we'll actually reopen, because it's on track to reopen. We've created our district and the labor partners have come to an agreement, but there are 3 key parts to it. So the 3 key parts are health practices and protocols that are safe at school. So we've done that. Our district and our school is ready to return. We have all of our safety protocols in place. And in our slideshow, we're going to talk about that, what they look like, what they are. The second thing was reducing the level of COVID-19 in LA. So the labor unions wanted to reduce the level down to red tier. So good news is that we are in red tier in Los Angeles as of today. So the last piece is what is in progress that we're still waiting on is vaccinations for all of our community staff members that work in our schools. Our principals, our teachers, our bus drivers, our custodians, our librarians, everybody who's going to be having access and to support our school needs to be able to get their second doses and have them be effective. So the timeline is we're still waiting on when we'll have an actual return date. So if you did see something that said April 19th, please know that may not be the actual start date. It could be later, it could be sooner, but it has to do with the fact that we're still waiting on everybody to have access to all of their vaccines if they want them.
Y ahora hemos repasado, muchos de los que nos han dicho, no sabemos exacto el día para el regreso a la escuela. Sabemos que para hacer eso habían 3 cosas que teníamos, condiciones que teníamos que tener implementados. Uno es implementar prácticas y protocolos de salud en la escuela, y nosotros sí hemos hecho eso. Tenemos un plan para hacer un regreso a la escuela seguro. Hacer de las escuelas una prioridad y reducir el nivel de COVID en Los Ángeles, y sabemos que sí han cambiado eso. Sabemos que fuimos del nivel morado ahora a nivel rojo, entonces hemos hecho eso, entonces por eso ven allí. Y el último que estamos en progreso es que estamos tratando de asegurar que todo el personal de la escuela estén ya vacunados. Serían, por ejemplo, las personas que trabajan, conductores de autobuses, ayudantes, consejeros, los que trabajan en la biblioteca, entonces están en proceso de todos de recibir sus vacunas, y eso es lo que estamos haciendo ahora.
And I do want to clarify that it is access to the 2 vaccines. So it's as of now, it is not a requirement for our teachers or our staff members to be vaccinated. They can make the option to not and return to school not vaccinated. But we do, part of our union, the teachers union agreement is, and also all the other label partner agreements, not just the teachers, that they have access to it. And that if they want it, they can get it, and that they can get both doses and be fully vaccinated before they're asked to come back. So I hope that helps clarify if it's required or not.
Y otra cosa que quería repetir en español es que por estas cosas que tenemos que tener esas 3 condiciones implementados, entonces no sabemos exactamente el día de regreso. Sabemos que hemos escuchado mucho sobre el 19 de abril. Ahorita no, con seguridad no sabemos, porque tienen que tener todos estos requisitos. También sabemos que es importante que las vacunas es una opción para maestros, y ellos tienen, el de la escuela, pero ellos pueden decidir no tomar las vacunas.
So one of the bigger parts of the plan is the biggest priority is the school health and safety. So we do have a school health and safety readiness report card that can be looked up for any school. And it's open to the public to see. And it's really to make sure, are we following the health and safety guidelines that are put in place by the LA Department of Public and Health to reopen? Do we have face masks, for all staff, students, and visitors? Are we implementing a physical distancing of 6 feet in the classrooms? Do we have signage? Are we going to be creating those small, consistent cohorts? Do we have our classrooms laid out to ensure that they've been redesigned for 6 feet of distancing, hand sanitizing stations throughout the campus, those ventilation systems, the MERV 13 air filters? Do we have all of those things in place? Do we have a screening protocol? Do we have adequate PPE for 2 months? Do we have staff training? Have we had that? So all of these things are things that we're already done. So we are ready and prepared to come back.
Y ahora entonces vemos acá un boletín de calificación sobre la preparación para la salud y seguridad en la escuela. ¿Qué es esto? Esto es una manera de para nosotros saber si tenemos todo en lugar para estar listos para reabrir la escuela. Entonces, una de las cosas es si tenemos ya la medida de seguridad es el uso de mascarillas, si tenemos ya planeado el distanciamiento físico, si tenemos preparados para poner los grupos en grupos cohortes pequeños, donde no hay muchos estudiantes, si ya hemos arreglado los salón de clases, si hemos puesto, por ejemplo, la calidad del aire, los sistemas de ventilación, de tener MERV 13, un filtro que nos puede ayudar a asegurar que el aire esté limpio, que tenemos protocolos para la limpieza y para el chequeo de salud, todos esos, las pruebas de COVID y puede todas las calificaciones que tenemos acá para asegurar que estén para regresar a la escuela.
So what's important for you to know is that you will be asked to to fill out a form for each of your children, and it's the program selection form. And the timeline is that you have this week to sort of make that decision of what you want to do initially. And so we are asking you to complete that by Friday, March 19th. And if you haven't seen the Return to Campus Family Guide, Ms. Rios will put it in the chat so that you can have access to the digital component of it. But there it is, reopening.lausd.net/family selection. And that is where you're going to complete your selection for each of your children. So you do have to do them. If you have 3 kids, you'll have to go in and do it for each student. And it isn't just for Mitchell Terrena, so it's any LAUSD student. So if you have a middle schooler, a high schooler, you do need to complete that for them as well.
Y ahora es importante saber que tenemos una selección. Ustedes como familia tienen que decidir para cada de sus hijos dónde es que quieren, qué es lo que deciden. Entonces, lo que vamos a ver es que tienen que hacer un formulario de selección de programa indicando si van a continuar con instrucción virtual o si van a elegir escuela en persona. Y entonces tienen que llenar esto para el estudiante. Sabemos que para completar este formulario sí necesita información de los 10 números, una identificación de cada estudiante que nosotros pueden llamar a la oficina para responder. And just a reminder to fill out that survey, it does require a student ID number, and you can go ahead and call the office. You can also find that student ID number on the report card. You will need that information when you fill out the survey. And again, that is due on Friday. De nuevo, eso se tiene que completar, ese formulario de selección de programa ya para el viernes. Necesitamos esta información de inmediato porque usamos esta información para hacer nuestros planes y asegurar dar información. Y voy a poner eso en la caja de chat. I will put that in the chat.
And we hope that this presentation will be able to give you as much information that we have now currently to help you make the best decision for your child. And we want to let you know and be transparent of what it will look like in virtual, what it will look like in this transition in-person style. We want to be able to provide answers regarding, daycare and whatever we have at the time. So we hope that after this presentation, you do have the information you need to make the best choice for your family. And it is a family choice. And that is why there's an option for in-person or virtual. And here's where you can get the family guide. So if you want to take a screenshot, if you haven't yet, and it is a living document in a way, because things are changing so rapidly, they wanted to get this out to you. And this was before the UTLA side letter agreement came out. So there are some things in there that aren't 100% accurate because the labor unions came out. So we do follow the UTLA side letter agreements and the labor agreements. Those are what we're binded by.
Yeah. I did put that in the chat. In addition, I will put the survey as well. Puse ese documento que vamos a usar el guía para familias sobre el regreso al plantel escolar. Lo puse en la caja de chat, lo pueden usar o pueden usar esta información. Este es un documento que lo escribieron antes de tener el acuerdo con el sindicato de maestros, y este es un documento que sí está cambiando ya, ya debido a las nuevas información que han decidido. Entonces van a ver que es un documento que van a ver la información más reciente.
And so this is what is going to be asked when you do log in to take your survey, the family selection survey. They're going to ask you, do you want hybrid or online? They're going to ask you if you need supervised daycare. They're going to ask you if you are a student who qualifies for bus transportation in our special education program, will you be using it? They're going to ask you if what you think about the proposed 21-22 school calendar year. They are proposing this 10 extra days for next school year. So they want to know what you feel as a parent. And then they also are asking for your summer school interest. And you will, again, like Ms. Rios needs, you will need your student ID.
Y ahora lo que vemos nosotros aquí es el formulario de selección de programa. ¿Qué son las preguntas que van a añadir en esta encuesta? Le van a preguntar si por cada estudiante, por cada hijo, si escogen tener instrucción en línea o instrucción en manera híbrido o instrucción en persona. También le van a preguntar si van a usar cuidado supervisado en la escuela, si necesitan transporte en el autobús escolar. También le van a preguntar sus opiniones sobre el calendario escolar, si hemos puesto esa información en nuestra comunicación cada domingo, pero aquí pueden poner su información. Y también le van a preguntar si tienen un interés en tener escuela de verano. Entonces, todo eso se tiene que entregar ya para el 19 de marzo. De nuevo, le voy a poner la información en la caja de chat. So again, I'll put the survey in the chat.
So this is what the proposed schedules look like for our preschool through elementary students. So we do have the PALS program here and all the way until our 5th grade class. So the proposed cohorts are AM and PM. So it could be hybrid, meaning you're in person, or it could be remote. So it could be from 8 to 11 in the morning, or it could be from 12 to 3. And then there is a transition time in the middle where the safe cleaning of the classrooms occur, where they will be fogging and cleaning the classroom spaces to allow for a safe cohort B to come in. And I do want you to know that Mondays will slightly be different because that's our professional development day. So there will be a slightly different schedule for Monday that we will share in just a minute. But your children will be either in person in the morning or could be in person in the afternoon. Or if you're choosing virtual, they could have virtual in the morning or virtual in the afternoon. And it really is dependent right now on the data that we get back from these parent surveys. So we do need to see how many students we have who want virtual and how many students we have who want in person. Our priority is going to be to fill up the AM for the in-person session. So we're hoping that what we will do is in person will be in the morning. And the after school or the afternoon would be more for the virtual. But again, this depends on our numbers.
Aquí vemos una muestra de cómo sería un horario para nuestra escuela. Ahora es una muestra, sabemos que los lunes va a ser un poquito diferente porque vamos a dar 30 minutos para la instrucción de los maestros para sus juntas, pero sabemos que por general, de 8 a 11 es en la mañana y estamos dando prioridad a los estudiantes que quieren tener instrucción en persona para que ellos vengan primero en persona. Vamos a decir para los que vienen a la tarde, si tenemos suficiente, tener de 12 a 3 para los que están haciendo virtualmente la instrucción. Entonces el maestro o la maestra tuviera una clase en la mañana, tal vez sería en persona, y tal vez otra clase en la tarde, que tal vez sería instrucción virtual. Aún esto todo depende en tener la información de los padres sobre qué son sus opciones. No podemos hacer los grupos hasta que tenemos la información. Entonces, les alentamos a todos a completar ese formulario.
So this is what the schedule looks like more with specifics. So on Monday, you can see that the cohort A would start around 8 a.m. and would go till 10:30. And then there would be a transition time between 10:30 and 11:30 where teachers get their 40-minute lunch. And then that's where if the students who are attending daycare at our campus, so anybody in cohort A or cohort B who is in the daycare, they will have an on-campus lunch safely outside, socially distanced. If your child is not participating in any of the daycare programs on campus, they would get their free lunch and they would go home with it. So everybody is being offered a free lunch. The only students eating on campus are the ones who are taking the daycare. And that's when our classroom cleaning occurs. And then cohort B would start at 11:30 to 2. And then from 2 to 3, we have our professional development with our staff. So that Monday is slightly different than the Tuesday through Friday schedule. We know that a lot of you have multiple children at our school who are in various grades. So siblings, we will be putting siblings on the same cohort. So siblings would, oops, what happened? Siblings would be all on cohort A, or siblings would all be on cohort B. And so we hope that that does help families. And then for safety reasons for coming in and out at the same time, because we obviously don't want to have, 300 and something kids, or even if we have half our kids in person, we don't want, 200 kids coming all at the same time. So there may be staggered starts and staggered dismissals by grade level to be able to safely come in and out of the campus.
Let me go ahead and admit that person. Y ahora en español quería más darle la información. Eso sería una muestra de un horario, empezando que sería para el lunes, de 8 a 10 y media. Vemos que los estudiantes ahí tuvieran clase. Sabemos que...
Sorry, I lost my slides for a minute. I have to find them again.
Oh, you know what? Let me go. I can go ahead and share. Let me see.
I found them.
Oh, okay.
I got a pop-up menu, and when I got a pop-up menu, all of a sudden my slides went away. That happens with this technology.
Oh. Ahora para, let's see, para repasar. Entonces, los lunes dijimos que para que los maestros tengan entrenamiento, sabemos que el horario va a cambiar. Entonces, el lunes estamos diciendo que el grupo viniera de 8 a 10 y media, media hora menos, y de 10 y media a 11 y media necesitamos una hora para limpiar los salones de clases antes de que venga el segundo grupo. Y durante este tiempo los maestros toman sus 40 minutos para tomar su almuerzo, y durante este tiempo las personas solamente, a todos les van a ofrecer comida, todos los estudiantes, pero solamente los que van a comer en la escuela son los que están participando en la supervisión. Y como les dijimos, las clases van a limpiar las clases durante esa hora. El segundo grupo empieza a las 11 y media, sale a las 2, y el entrenamiento para los maestros serían de 2 a 3. Vemos ahora el horario de martes a viernes, donde sabemos que de 11 a 12 sería ese tiempo para limpieza, para los estudiantes que van a poder comer en la escuela, serían los que están participando en el programa de supervisión. Sabemos que vamos a asegurar que cada estudiante, que los hermanos, todos una familia estén en el mismo grupo. Y para seguridad es importante saber que no todos, tal vez vamos a cambiar las horas poquito para asegurar que no todos van a empezar a la misma hora, tal vez, porque no queremos que todos 370 estudiantes estén saliendo y entrando al mismo tiempo, porque queremos asegurar que tenemos el distanciamiento apropiado.
And I do want to say this is a 3-hour instructional model. So your students will be receiving 3 hours of instruction either virtually or 3 hours of instruction in person. So it is not a 6-hour day. So I can see some questions like, well, if my student's in person for 3 hours in the morning, in the afternoon, what do they do? There is no other instruction for them in the afternoon. They can attend our daycare program, which we'll go into in a minute, but it is a 3-hour instruction day. So it's 3 hours virtually or 3 hours in person.
Importante, la pregunta era si la instrucción son 3 horas en persona y después 3 horas haciendo instrucción asincrónico. No. Aquí ese es un modelo de 3 horas de instrucción. Sabemos que si quieren, sí ofrecen cuidado de niño para los otros 3 horas, pero en este modelo la instrucción son para 3 horas.
These schedules are for all elementary students in LAUSD. So I do want to let you know that we did not create these schedules. This is through the side letter agreement with the bargaining members. This is all elementary schools. They will have this same model.
Y para que ustedes sepan, esos son el modelo que está ofrecido por todo el distrito. No es en particular a nuestra escuela. Entonces, este es el mismo modelo a través de todo el distrito. Y no,
so I wanted, go ahead, Mrs. Rios.
Y no fue, el modelo no fue creado por nuestra escuela.
So we wanted to share with you a little bit about what the cohorts could look like. So again, we have to wait until everybody does complete their surveys. Then we will look at what our numbers are. How many people do we want in person and how many people do we want virtual? But this is what one class could look like. One teacher could have cohort A in person from 8 to 11, and he or she could also have cohort A or cohort B in person in the afternoon. So let me just take, for example, Mr. Diaz, who teaches TKK. He potentially could have, 11 families who want in person, and the remainder of his families, or he potentially would have 19 kids who want in person. So I can't safely put 19 kids in a classroom. So I have to take his 19 students and I have to make sure that I can do a cohort A and a cohort B. So that's one potential option that looks like this. I'm going to have Ms. Rios talk about that in Spanish, and then we'll talk about the other options that it could look like.
Yeah. Sabemos que, por ejemplo, esa es una opción que tenemos, que, por ejemplo, tenemos un grupo que viene de 8 a 11 en persona y un grupo que viene en la tarde en persona de 12 a 3. Vamos a imaginarnos, vamos a tomar en cuenta la clase del señor Díaz. Vamos a decir que si él tiene 19 o 20 alumnos, tuviéramos 10 en la mañana, 10 en la tarde, y el maestro está enseñando un grupo de 8 a 11 en su salón de clase, de 8 a 11, y de nuevo viene otro grupo de 12 a 3 y el maestro enseña el otro grupo en esas horas. Pero eso es
And so for in-person cohorts, the public guidance right now from the LA Department of Public Health is that we could have 16 students safely in a classroom, 6 feet apart. But that means that you have to have a classroom that can actually have that space. At Michel Terrena, we don't have any classrooms that can safely have 16 students in a classroom 6 feet apart. So most of our classrooms, the cohorts will be around 12 to 14 for an in-person cohort.
Importante para nosotros reconocer que para nuestra escuela, ahorita en la nación del Departamento de Salud es que nosotros tendremos 16 estudiantes al máximo en un grupo, pero para nosotros solamente podemos caber como de 10 a 12 o tal vez un salón hasta 14 en persona, porque no tenemos suficiente espacio en el salón de clase para mantener 6 pies de distanciamiento.
So another option that may look like for a classroom is that in the morning, we would have a teacher could have his or her students who wanted online, and they could also have a second online in the afternoon. So it's all dependent on numbers. We may have a classroom where the majority of them want virtual. So then we would have to create an AM and a PM virtual. So again, this is all based on our numbers that we get back from the survey. But this is another option that a classroom teacher could have.
Otra opción para los maestros es tal vez, dependiendo en los resultados de esta encuesta, es que tal vez tienen suficientes estudiantes. Si vamos a tomar en caso, vamos a decir la clase del señor Díaz, que 10 estudiantes que todos los 20 estudiantes escogen que quieren continuar con instrucción en línea. Entonces el maestro va a tomar un grupo que va a enseñar de 8 a 11 y otro virtualmente, y otro grupo de 12 a 3 que van a enseñar virtualmente. Ese sería si todos los estudiantes en su salón de clase escogen esa opción.
And the other option, dependent again on the numbers, is that the teacher may have in-person in the morning and would have virtual instruction in the afternoon. So again, it's all based on what we get back from your data of what you want and what all the other families in our school want. And then we'll take that piece of math and we'll figure out how to create these cohorts that make sense for our teachers. We are prioritizing the best we can to keep teachers with their current kids, but there may have to be some reorganization because we may, for example, have 20 students in a class of 24 that want in person. So we will be making, cohorts that fit 20 students in person with their teacher, and those 4 who wanted virtual may have to be reconfigured with another teacher. So there is a possibility that you may not get your teacher. So we do want to let you know that could happen, but we're trying our best to not. But again, it's a math issue.
Y ahora vamos a hablar sobre otra opción. Vamos a decir que las opciones no salen claramente, exactamente como hemos explicado, 10 en la mañana, 10 en la tarde. Vamos a otra opción sería, por ejemplo, si dependiendo en los resultados de la encuesta, si un grupo decide que ellos quieren ir en persona y tal vez el maestro o maestra va a enseñar en la mañana en persona y en la tarde en línea con los que han escogido en línea. Ahora, no es, todas estas opciones que hemos explicado, el maestro y la clase se mantiene igual, pero vamos a decir que hay una situación donde hay 24 alumnos en un salón y 20 de los estudiantes escogen regresar en persona y 4 deciden que quieren estar virtualmente. Entonces, en ese momento no podemos poner más de el 12 indicado, entonces vamos a decir que el maestro va a enseñar 2 grupos en persona. ¿Y qué pasa con los otros 4 estudiantes? Para nosotros vamos a tratar de hacer muchos esfuerzos para que esos 4 niños se quedan con el maestro o la maestra, pero sabemos que tal vez tenemos que reorganizar el grupo para asegurar que todos estén recibiendo la instrucción que necesitan. Para nosotros realmente es un problema de matemáticas. Nosotros tenemos que tener los números para poder ponerlos en grupo acá, decidir si hay esto. Vamos a dar todos nuestros esfuerzos para asegurar que su hijo se mantenga con el maestro que han tenido, pero sabemos que a veces no es posible, pero vamos a tratar de hacer eso.
And I do want to clarify that all of our teachers will be teaching from our campus. So even if a student is teaching virtually, even if a teacher is teaching virtually, they will be teaching from their classroom. So that is how the instruction is working, is that all employees are returning to our campus.
Uh-huh. Como va la instrucción para nosotros es que todos los maestros, aunque estén virtualmente enseñando, vamos a decir, van a estar en la escuela, en el plantel de la escuela. Entonces, el maestro o la maestra va a estar enseñando del salón de la clase, no importa si todos escogen virtualmente.
And I do want to make sure that people do understand that your child will only be attending one session. So they're not attending like in person in the morning and then going home and attending the afternoon session. The students are only getting 3 hours. So that's up to you as a family, how you choose what you want your 3 hours to be. Do you want it to be an in-person style, or do you want it to be at home virtually? But again, it's only 3 hours. So your child is not getting the afternoon and the morning.
Aún entonces es importante indicar que esta manera de instrucción es para 3 horas. Entonces, ustedes como padres escogen si esas 3 horas lo quieren tenerlos en persona o prefieren tener en línea. Pero para que sepan, no van a darles 3 horas en persona y después 3 horas en línea. Es uno o el otro.
So it's just 3 hours. So I keep seeing questions so is there asynchronous the rest of the day? No, there is not. That is just 3 hours of instruction. The 3 hours is in person or the 3 hours is remote.
Yeah, and again, also childcare is still available for the other 3 hours. So no, that is also an option. Entonces es importante saber que solamente el programa de modelo de instrucciones por 3 horas solamente. Sabemos que sí hay 3 horas que pueden estar dando cuidado de niños igual para completar, para hacer 6 horas completas, pero no van a dar trabajo asincrónico como lo han hecho en el pasado.
So I just want to kind of like go back. So again, this is what some of the cohorts look like, and it's based on math. But we may have a teacher who has more students want in person, so that to accommodate for all the kids that want that. We may have a classroom that majority of them all want online. So the teacher would have to accommodate an online who want in person, and then the teacher would then teach the students who wanted virtual. So again, these are kind of the 3 things that can be happening at our school simultaneously to be able to do this for all families, to be able to provide them the instruction option they want.
Yeah. Es importante reconocer que nosotros estamos ofreciendo diferentes opciones que mejor para asegurar que para su familia la opción es indicado para su familia, y sabemos con eso tal vez pueden ser que una persona está escogiendo instrucción en persona, otra persona instrucción en línea, y sabemos que cada maestro en el salón de la escuela puede ser que está haciendo algo diferente, y todo realmente se basa en las matemáticas y en los resultados de estas encuestas y formularios.
And I do want to let you guys know that this is for all of our school. So this is our preschool program will be looking like this. Our dual language program will look like this. Our English program will look like this. And our autism core program will look like this. So this is the model for elementary schools. It's 3 hours of instruction, either in person or virtual.
Y es importante reconocer que este modelo de instrucción es para todos los estudiantes de escuelas elementarias. Entonces es importante reconocer que esto es para nuestro programa dual, esto es para el programa de autismo, es para todos los estudiantes, es o 3 horas en personas o 3 horas en línea.
And I do want to be very transparent. There are a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we don't have yet. Information is changing and all of the sort of protocols and guidelines for certain things are coming. So for example, our special education students have providers that provide them with speech services, that provide them with occupational therapy, that provide them with rec therapy. And we still don't have any guidance or a labor agreement on how that will happen safely, because those employees see various children who may be in various different cohorts. So we're still working on how those will be safely done to be able to provide our special education students with their in-person supports. So there are still a lot of, puzzle pieces that are still working behind the scenes, but the district needs some of this information from you right away for us to do some of this planning. So we know that it's like a catch-22. We're asking you to make a decision where you don't have all the information. And so I'm just trying to be as transparent and honest as I can. I don't want to sell you something that we can't give. So we're going to be honest here today with what the district has out for you right now, and that some of it we have to wait and see.
It's a good thing we like puzzles, right, Mr. Cleary? So, one of the things, entonces, para repetirlo, la información es que realmente esto es como un rompecabezas. Para nosotros realmente sabemos que lo más importante es saber es que nosotros le vamos siempre la verdad y la información que nosotros tenemos disponible. Aún no les queremos prometer ninguna situación que realmente no sabemos toda la información, y le vamos a hacer bien francamente, le vamos a decir que no tenemos toda la información. Necesitamos información de cada ustedes para poder hacer este plan. Es como le hemos dicho, es como rompecabezas. Sabemos cómo vamos a poner a estos estudiantes en este grupo, y aún para nosotros estamos dando todo el esfuerzo para asegurar que le podemos realmente asegurar que cada estudiante esté en un modelo perfecto, pero vamos a tratar. Otra cosa es importante que no tenemos toda la información. Por ejemplo, en la situación de educación especial, a muchos de estos estudiantes reciben diferentes terapias, tal vez con una terapista de lenguaje o terapista de, para física o algo así, pero sabemos que esas personas también ven varios niños y sabemos que cómo es que vamos a recibir a estos empleados, pero ellos van con cada grupo y muchos y no queremos exponer la salud es primordial y la seguridad, y eso es lo que estamos asegurando y cuando la información esté disponible, le vamos a dar la información.
So I know that many of you are in our dual language program. So as you know that many of our classrooms are partner teacher model. So you probably have questions about how is this going to work in online or in-person instruction in a partner teacher model and keep the safety of the cohorts. So our district and the multicultural education department and the labor unions are still working out guidance on dual language. But as of now, we do have a meeting with our amazing dual language teachers and staff to come up with our own plan of what it may look like at our school. What we may be leaning on for safety, because we cannot have in a day students switching teachers. That's just not going to work with the cohorts. So we may likely have something that looks along the lines of you stay with your English teacher for a week, and the other kids are with their Spanish teacher, and then there's a swap in the next week. And that if you had English for week 1, you're going to have Spanish for week 2. So that we can have a safe instructional model that doesn't get kids in cohorts mixing. But there is more guidance to come. Some of the suggestions that have come up is that teachers would be maybe teaching and not the kids, but that's harder for us to do because in the classrooms you have all of your Spanish in one class, all of your materials, and you have all of your English in another class. So teachers, it's hard to have teachers mix. Teachers can't switch with those resources really. So that's a challenge. So we're working with education department and we're working with our own teachers to figure out a model. So we don't have those answers yet. So like I said, we don't have all the answers today to give you, but please know we're working on them and that we will have a safe option for in-person dual language where they will get English and Spanish.
And again, and as we said, is right now we are waiting for more input before any decision is made, and we will share that as soon as that becomes available. ¿Qué es lo que pasa con los estudiantes en programa dual? Sabemos que algunos maestros son en programa dual, un maestro se dedica a enseñar en inglés y otro maestro se dedica a enseñar en español. Ahora, con esos grupos es importante para nosotros, tal vez vamos a tener estamos esperando para más información del distrito, pero mientras vamos a tener una junta con nuestros maestros para tratar de averiguar otras ideas que podemos hacer para la instrucción. Tal vez una semana se dedican con un maestro de inglés y otra semana con maestro de español. Hemos hablado de tal vez de cambiar un maestro de un lugar al otro, pero sabemos que a veces los materiales de un lugar, por ejemplo, de los materiales y todo lo que necesitan para enseñar en español está en un salón de cuarto, y para pedirle a los maestros que cambien de cuarto cada día, tal vez sería demasiado, ¿no? Porque tienen sus materiales allá. Entonces es algo que estamos pensando y estamos esperando tener más información para darles voto.
And I do want to give you an honest picture of what both virtual would look like and what this in-person looks like. So the in-person model is not what we're used to pre-COVID, right? Where the kids could sit on the rug and the kids could interact and the teacher could pull small groups. So the in-person model still does keep students 6 feet away from each other. So most likely, staying in their seat, or they may have a different place in the classroom that they may be able to go with permission to read a book, etc. But they're not going to be interacting with each other in close proximity to other students, and nor will they be interacting with close proximity to a teacher. So I do want you to know what that in-person instruction looks like. It's not pre-COVID. So I just want you to know and have kind of an honest visual of what it does look like in the classroom. And I also want you to share that the virtual model has shifted now. So with this new agreement, especially in kindergarten, the virtual model for kindergarten was small group all day. And now the small group all day has moved away from that to be able to accommodate in-person instruction and virtual. So the virtual instruction now is a 3-hour block, and all the kids that do virtual will be together. So there is some shifts in the virtual instruction that I want you guys to know about.
Yeah. Entonces es importante, queremos darle como una, bueno, realmente como una foto de cómo si estuviera cada instrucción, si es en línea o en persona, para darle mejor idea. No es la misma instrucción que recibieron antes de esta pandemia. No va a ser que los niños se pueden, ya que están en persona, que pueden tener tiempo con su grupo y hablar o acercarse con los maestros. Aún con todos tenemos que mantener la seguridad es lo primordial. Eso, tomamos esa responsabilidad bien seria y entonces sabemos que tenemos que mantener 6 pies de distanciamiento. Entonces no va a ser, si antes pensaban cuando los maestros trabajaban con un grupo pequeño y después estaban los otros niños haciendo otro trabajo, es diferente. Y sabemos que nosotros nos estamos adaptando, igual como los estudiantes van a adaptarse y las familias. Ahora para la instrucción en línea también va a cambiar. No es especialmente para los estudiantes en kinder. Ellos antes estaban en grupos pequeños donde tenían solamente, vamos a decir, 6 o 8 estudiantes en un grupo pequeño. Ahora en línea va a ser diferente. Ahora va a ser en instrucción en un grupo para toda la clase. Entonces no sería grupos pequeños. Y es importante más ver para que cuando tomen sus decisiones tengan una idea mejor de cómo están. Y vamos a enseñarles un momento cómo es un salón de clase. And in a little bit, you'll see some photos of what a classroom would look like.
Yes, so please continue to put your questions in the chat, because at the end, we're going to go through them and try to answer them the best that we can. So now we're just going to go briefly into the daycare. So the district will be providing free daycare for families that need it because of the fact that there is an AM/PM model. So if your child is placed in the AM model for school, but you need daycare in the afternoon, that's an option for you. If your child is placed in the PM and you need daycare in the morning, then it's an option for you. And the daycare will run from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is being run by the Beyond the Bell program. So we currently do have that program at our school. We have the LA's Best as part of that, and we have the Ready, Set, Go. So those staff members are the ones that will be doing the daycare. And based on your survey, when you complete your survey, this is where you tell them if you need the daycare. So there's not another sign up for the daycare. It's all part of your program selection form. And that's where you tell them if you need the daycare. And again, based on how many families we say need daycare, the district is going to be hiring additional staff members, et cetera. It's a big logistical, complicated thing. So once they get the numbers, then we have to determine how many spaces on our campus do we need. We can utilize outdoor and indoor. They may have to utilize local libraries, local community colleges, local park and rec, but they are committed to offering free daycare for families that need it. And they're focusing on 4 areas. So there's academic engagement, where students will get continued like tutoring. There's physical engagement, where kids will go outside and get an opportunity to play. There's creative engagement, so students will get to develop different things and create, explore in art. And then we really know that the biggest benefit of the in-person model is some type of social engagement. Yes, they're still 6 feet apart, but it's the biggest piece of this is that kids get to see other kids in person, and that there's some kind of social engagement that kids have been missing. And the daycare will provide continued social engagement. But it does have to be done safely, because we can't have big groups of students mixing in cohorts. That would sort of defeat the purpose of having safe, stable cohorts. So the daycare does have to have a bit of logistics for safety, and they are going to be done at a 14 students is the cap for each daycare cohort.
And that's would be with 2 adults. Entonces ahora, cuidado de niños. Cuando ustedes tienen el formulario para la selección del programa, ustedes tienen la opción de escoger cuidado de niño. Esa supervisión es aún basado en un grupo que se llama Beyond the Bell, que nosotros tenemos dos programas, Ready, Set, Go y LA Express, y aún eso se ofrece a cualquier estudiante que necesita la supervisión, ese cuidado de niños, y está ofrecido por 3 horas. Entonces, si ustedes escogen por la mañana, entonces ellos tienen esas 3 horas para la tarde. Si escogen si están en un grupo que viene la instrucción en la tarde, ellos tienen las 3 horas para estar en la mañana. Este cuidado de niño va a enfocarse en 4 áreas de participación académica, que sería tutoría, un poquito de ayuda con la tarea, participación física, participación creativa y algo que ya sé que muchos de los padres hemos visto que necesitan esa participación social, tiempo para que ellos se comuniquen con sus amigos y que tengan ese tiempo con otros estudiantes, con siempre los protocolos de seguridad, de eso de mantenerse 6 pies de distancia, y aún para nosotros también es importante que estamos tratando de establecer estas normas que tenemos durante el día también en este grupo. No sabemos ahora, todo se basa en los resultados de la encuesta. Entonces es importante llenar eso para que ellos puedan empezar, el distrito va a tener que asignar el personal que necesita para tener este cuidado de niños. Entonces, por favor, llenen ese formulario para poder darle la información. Van a tener al máximo 14 estudiantes en un grupo y eso sería lo que hemos dicho, la supervisión serían con los adultos y tratar de mantener, mejor dicho, esos grupos para que sean seguros.
And I do want to let you know that yes, kindergartners were not available for some of the programs before, but they are now. So kindergarteners, all of our students can attend the daycare from 8 to 4. Some of the questions that some of you have, we can't answer just yet. So the question was like, if it's going to be potentially, we may have to use like a park and rec nearby. How will my child get there? So some of those questions we can't answer yet, but the district and the Beyond the Bell program is working on it, and it's really a numbers game. So once we find out how many students need supervision at each of the schools, that's when more of those things will come out about whether or not we'll have to utilize a local community college or a local library or a local park and rec potentially.
And it's important to recognize, just like Ms. Sakalarian and I are working on this puzzle piece, they're working on that puzzle piece, which is Beyond the Bell, on how they're going to coordinate that. Y entonces para nosotros es importante saber que esta supervisión también es como dependiendo en la cantidad de estudiantes que escogen esto, sabemos que tal vez no podemos tener todos los estudiantes en cuidado de niños en la escuela, dependiendo que cuántos quieren. Sabemos que ahora los estudiantes de kinder también pueden y TK también pueden calificar para este cuidado de niños. Dependiendo en la información, tal vez se va a utilizar instalaciones como las bibliotecas, colegios comunitarios, tal vez Bellevue Park, no sé. Y aún eso es uno que están arreglando el Distrito Escolar Unificado. Ellos están arreglando esa parte de la rompecabezas para poder decirle a ustedes qué serían. Tal vez van a utilizar autobuses escolares para llevar a estudiantes. No se sabe ahora, depende en los resultados de estas encuestas. Entonces es bien importante saber de ustedes para poder hacer estos planes.
And I know that we've had third party organizations that have provided daycare on our campus before, like E3. We also have had third party programs like Enrich LA and various programs like the Young Storytellers that have come on our campus. So currently, our district is working on the sort of outside agencies and what the protocols will be for them, because those organizations have to be able to follow the health and safety guidance as well. So they have to make sure that their programs have contact tracing, their programs have COVID testing, their programs have all those things. So there's sort of another piece of the puzzle that's being worked on right now. So as of right now, we would not have E3 on our campus, but that doesn't mean that that wouldn't change.
Ya. Y es importante reconocer que también el año pasado tuvimos otros grupos que estaban ofreciendo supervisión, el grupo E3, por ejemplo, E3, pero sabemos que cualquier grupo de supervisión tiene que trabajar en los protocolos de seguridad que ya ha establecido el distrito. Entonces, en este momento no vamos a tener el grupo de E3 en nuestra escuela, pero sabemos si es algo que ellos deciden tratar de ofrecer, ellos también tienen que seguirlo con los protocolos.
So we did want to show you pictures of what the facilities are looking like and some of the safety protocols that we've already done. Right. So you can see that our classroom spaces will be set apart with their tables 6 feet apart, and one student will sit at a table. So there will be do not sit here signs, do not use signs. We do have plexiglass in common use areas, especially in our main office. Student desks will not have plexiglass. That is something that our district is not utilizing due to the high contact touch surface area and having multiple kids come in the rooms. So with the students' desks will not have that.
Y es importante también ayudar viendo las fotos que tenemos acá. Can you go back to the one slide? There? Ajá. Y vemos que en nuestra, por ejemplo, en nuestra oficina, en otros lugares hemos tenido vidrio de plexiglass, o sea que un plástico que para proteger y en otras áreas para asegurar la seguridad, pero en este momento el distrito no han dicho que van a tener esto cubriendo cada escritorio de los estudiantes. La razón porque han dicho porque los estudiantes van a tocar cada lugar y aún también han dicho por para el filtro, tenemos el filtro de aire, entonces es una manera de tratar de asegurar que eso es el protocolo ahora. Es solamente en otros lugares tener los vidrios de plástico, pero no en los escritorios.
So we also do have pathways in our school for safe egress in and out of our facilities, as we know that we do have indoor buildings. So we have our stairways and our pathways that are one way. So we have one set of staircase that goes up and one set of staircases that go down. We have pathways all around our school for students to be safe. We have signage to let students know to wash their hands, to keep their masks on, to keep 6 feet away. And we have hand sanitizing stations all over the campus where the students just press on the red button, or the staff press on the red button with their foot, so that they don't have to touch anything. And then the hand sanitizing comes out before they go up any stairs. They're all across our campus. They're outside. So these are some of the safety protocols we have in place. Our custodial staff has a cleaning cycle so that all the high touch surface areas are being cleaned every 2 hours. Again, in between cohorts, the classrooms will be disinfected. So those are some of the big safety pieces that we put into place.
Ya, ahora lo que pueden ver son fotos que tenemos en nuestra escuela. Ven que ahora vemos esos señales que nos dicen, que nos indican que realmente los estudiantes van a entrar por un sentido y salir del otro. Entonces, solamente hay diferentes direcciones o unidireccional. Tenemos desinfectantes de manos. Tiene el grupo de limpieza, tienen un horario específico para cada 2 horas limpiar áreas donde las personas pueden tocar en varias, serían tal vez las puertas. Vemos que ahí hay desinfectante de manos. También vimos que ahora para seguridad los estudiantes no están tomando agua, usando diferentes protocolos que tenemos.
And as you notice, the drinking fountains have been placed with do not use. So the options are that students can bring their own water bottles, reusable water bottles that they can have at school for those 3 hours that they're there. And we also have, the district is providing disposable one-use water bottles. So we have pallets and pallets of stored water bottles now, so that if a student does come to school without a water bottle, that we do have their own water bottle for them, and then we can safely dispose or safely recycle those plastic water bottles.
Ahí vemos esa fuente para beber. Ahora han indicado que no se puede usar, pero el distrito sí está dando, sí han mandado a la escuela ya muchas botellitas de agua para que los estudiantes ya tengan eso disponible. También pueden mandar eso a través de casa a la escuela si tienen, pero los que se olviden tenemos allí disponibles para ustedes y vamos a reciclar todo eso.
Um, so here is a picture of what the classroom setting looks like, right? So students would be sitting all facing the front. They would be seated 6 feet away from each other. They would have their own personal school supplies. So their school supplies are not shared with any other students. So that's really important to know. They may be bringing their personal device to school, their assigned device as well. And our classrooms, all of our buildings have been upgraded to the MERV 13 air filters, which are the highest HEPA air filtration. And they're running, the fans are running 24 hours a day. And so that is the filtration and sort of the ventilation. Some of our classrooms have windows that open, that have like one safety window that opens, but not all the windows open. So the ventilation is through the air filtration. That's what the ventilation is. That's required by the County Department of Public Health. And all of our classrooms have them upgraded. And every month they're actually changed out. And I get a report and it sends to me in my email every month that the MERV 13 air filters are shifted out. So that's really important, a safety protocol that we have in place at LAUSD schools.
Yeah. Ahora aquí hay algunas fotos de la escuela, de cómo sería clase en la escuela. Si se fijan en los estudiantes, ellos están sentados de una dirección, o sea que todos están, ningún estudiante le está dando la cara a otro estudiante, son 6 pies de distancia, aún cada estudiante tiene sus propios materiales, o sea que no están compartiendo las tijeras, los colores. Sabemos que los estudiantes también, vemos en el salón de clase, mejor dicho, vemos que hay, el ventilador está prendido y tienen cada clase tiene un filtro y ese filtro de MERV 13 es el filtro más alto. Y aún se cambia cada mes y nosotros recibimos un reporte cuando los cambien para asegurar que lo están haciendo. Y sabemos que los estudiantes tal vez van a necesitar traer sus tabletas o computadoras a la escuela y eso sería para ellos mismos. O sea, estamos asegurando que los materiales y los dispositivos se quedan con los estudiantes y no comparten.
And so, just as we always do when kids come to school, either virtually or in person, we always come together as a community and make agreements to be safe. And so, our teachers will be creating agreements with the students around how to be safe. We will be doing kind of like a smart start, right? Where kids will have the opportunity to sort of be instructed on how to be safe in the classroom. What are the rules? So safety is our number one priority. And so these are some examples. We currently have students on our campus right now. We have students who come for the LAUSD Employee Supervision Program. We have some special education students who are receiving their in-person assessments. So we do have some students coming on our campus. And so these are things that we've already implemented, right? How to be safe by keeping your mask on at all times, how to be responsible by not getting too close, keeping your 6 feet, right? Using your own materials, boxes, all of our hand washing stations, all of the bathrooms, all of the sinks have signage on what sink can be used or what sinks cannot be used for safety. We've got the signage on how to wash your hands appropriately. So safety is the number one priority.
Lo que hemos dicho antes, la prioridad es la seguridad. Y aún sabemos que cada maestro van a empezar siempre con lo importante que son las reglas de seguridad. Entonces aquí vemos algunos ejemplos de acuerdos que han hecho maestros con los estudiantes que pueden ser para asegurar que ellos saben los protocolos para mantenerse seguros. Aún queríamos recordarles que en nuestra escuela ya tenemos estudiantes en persona, que vienen en persona. Muchos de estos son hijos de personal de la escuela, algunos son estudiantes de educación especial que vienen para exámenes y esos son algunos de los acuerdos que repasamos con ellos para asegurar que ellos están manteniendo esa seguridad, porque como dijimos, eso es lo primordial.
So before I get into the daily health check, I just saw the bathroom question, and the bathroom is always a concern, right? So students will be allowed to go to the bathroom, but we will be having an assigned personnel to our restrooms in kindergarten, in our upper grades, because we don't want cohorts to mix. So 2 students from each cohort or classroom would be allowed to go to the restroom. There would be adult there to supervise, and then when the 2 students are done, then the next 2 group of kids that need to come in. So we do have to really prioritize personnel. So it's really important that we will have personnel and supervision, because what good does it do to have all of these safe cohorts and then all of a sudden there's exposure in the bathroom or there's exposure somewhere. So it is a complicated situation, and personnel is the big thing. So we are working with our district. They did say they will be providing extra personnel. So those are all sort of big, important check boxes for us: safety, safety, safety. So how do you actually come into the school is what I'll go over next, but I'll let Ms. Rios talk about the bathroom in Spanish.
Y ahora, importante, una pregunta sobre el baño. ¿Cómo vamos a mantener la seguridad en el baño? Algunas cosas que vamos a tener, vamos a asignar a un personal con asegurando que el baño, que los estudiantes están siguiendo los protocolos de seguridad en el baño. Y eso es tener 2 estudiantes solamente del mismo grupo, porque ¿qué importa tener estos grupos pequeños cuando al ir al baño están expuestos a todos otros estudiantes? Entonces vamos a tener personal aquí. El distrito ya nos ha prometido que vamos a tener personal extra para ayudar con ese trabajo. Y ahora vamos a hablar de cómo es que entran los estudiantes a la escuela.
So how do you get safe access to our campus? So we will be having special gates for students to come in, special gates for kids going to daycare, and special gates for kindergartners coming in, and special gates for other grades. We are also planning on having a safe drop off with cars. So that's more to come, but we will be having safe drop off. But the main thing to know is that the families, parents, you will need to use the daily pass. And the daily pass is your screening check. It's where you answer your daily screening questions about, your commitments to being safe, and then the safety questions about how your child is feeling. And then when they complete that daily pass, you will get a QR code that we will then screen you when you come onto campus. We will see the QR code that has your child's name, the date to be able to come on campus, that you have agreed to the commitments, and that you've answered the daily screening questions. And it kind of looks like this. And that's what it will look like when we get it. And we will have iPads or phones that we will be, all of our employees who will be working at the gates will be scanning those in. It's kind of like we have to ask those three or four questions. This is to sort of be more efficient, so that we don't have to stop every child and ask them that question. If a child comes to our school and they don't have this, then we will, if they're with their parent, then we will be able to ask their parent in person, and we will be able to ask them those questions in person if they don't have the daily pass. Now, unfortunately, if a young child is dropped off to school without their parent and they don't have their daily pass, then our staff will have to be able to reach out and contact the family, because little children, it's not reliable to ask a 5-year-old the daily health screening questions. So those are some protocols that as a school we'll have to work out, but hopefully parents will not just drop off their kids without having the daily screening through the daily pass.
Importante para hablar sobre el chequeo de la salud a través del pase diario. Entonces, esto es una manera de hacerlo a través de agarrar el pase diario es el chequeo que vamos a hacer, asegurando que van a hacer preguntas y que vamos a pasar diariamente, preguntas de detección de salud, preguntándoles si, por ejemplo, están síntomas, han sido expuesto a alguien más con COVID o algo así. Entonces, eso es para asegurar que todos estén seguros. Hay diferentes ideas que ya tenemos de cómo vamos a tener lugares dedicados para la entrada para los estudiantes, entrada para los estudiantes que vienen para el cuidado de niños. También tenemos otros protocolos que vamos a tener para dejar a sus estudiantes a través del transporte, bueno, a través del carro, para dejarlos manejar a la escuela, a la clase y poder estar en el patio interior y poder dejar a sus estudiantes para ayudarnos a hacer esto de una manera más eficaz. Es importante tener este pase. Es una aplicación que pueden poner en su teléfono y aún de esta manera les hacen las preguntas, los estudiantes nos enseñan el pase diario y aún nos pueden ayudar para hacer esto en una manera más fácil y más rápido. Si el estudiante no viene con el pase diario, no estás con su mamá o su papá o alguien, un adulto que puede responder a esas preguntas, entonces tal vez es necesario para nosotros llamar a casa con un adulto porque con un estudiante de 5 años es difícil que ellos pueden contestar todas las preguntas que le vamos a hacer en una manera que ellos tal vez que pueden contestar estas preguntas. Sí,
As part, oh,
espera, sí vamos a tener un chequeo de temperatura antes de entrar, además de tener estas preguntas que vamos a hacerles, también vamos a asegurar que no tienen temperatura para entrar.
so part of the check-in, along with the daily health screening that you do through the daily pass, is also that we will be doing a no contact temperature check. So we use the infrared thermometers. We have lots of them already. And a student, we will do a no contact thermometer check to make sure the temperature is 99.9 or less. If a temperature is 100 degrees, then the student would not be allowed to come on campus. And also that their face mask is being worn properly. We will be providing face masks, but students can also bring their own face masks.
Yeah. Y entonces es importante también que si acaso los estudiantes no vienen con sus mascarillas, en ese momento en la área de registro vamos a chequear la temperatura. También les ofrecemos mascarillas a los estudiantes que no tienen, pero les sugerimos que vengan con su mascarilla y vamos a asegurar que tienen la mascarilla puesta bien, cubriendo la nariz, la boca, y si el estudiante tiene temperatura más de 100 grados 100, entonces en ese momento no van a poder asistir a la clase, no los van a dejar la entrada.
And I do also want to let you know that we do have to have an isolation room. So if a student does show any signs from COVID-19, right, a temperature or coughing or any of those symptoms of COVID-19, then they would be escorted to an isolation tent outside where either our school nurse or other school personnel who are safely equipped would be able to support the student in isolation. The family would be contacted for the child to be safely picked up, and then they would have to quarantine for 10 days and have a COVID-19 test before returning. We also do have a quarantine room. So if a student shows symptoms in the class and they potentially expose the other classmates would then be considered quarantined. We would contact each family, contact tracing would be done, and the students in quarantine would be asked to go home, and they would stay in quarantine until they get a negative COVID-19 test. So I just want you to know that all of the guidelines from the public health department, our district is following and our school is following. So we do have all those safety plans of isolation and quarantine.
Yeah, important. Just to clarify again, this would be when students are already on campus. This is not, if a child has 100-degree temperature, will not be allowed and then brought into our isolation room. This is once they're in school and they're already showing symptoms or they're feeling sick at that point in time. This is for students who were allowed in the morning. Yeah. Entonces, ahora para.
I will say, and if the child is ill, then they could attend virtually.
Mm-hmm.
If they're on quarantine or if they're ill and they have to quarantine for 10 days, then they could potentially attend our program virtually.
Y entonces es importante saber que nosotros estamos siguiendo las pautas familiares del salud público y aún eso significa que tenemos una sala de aislamiento. ¿Qué significa? Vamos a decir, su estudiante ya entró al salón de clase y están demostrando algunos síntomas de COVID. Tal vez tiene calentura, algo más que no se podía detectar antes. Entonces, en ese momento lo vamos a llevar a la sala de aislamiento vamos a notificar a los padres y aún tenemos ya un lugar seguro y un procedimiento para que lo vengan a recoger en una manera seguro. Y aún también los estudiantes que fueron expuestos a este estudiante van a mantenerse en cuarentena. Y en ese momento también vamos a informarles a los padres y ellos no van a poder regresar hasta que ellos demuestren un examen de COVID negativo. Hemos seguido estas reglas, aún están de acuerdo con las reglas que ha puesto el Departamento de Salud. Y más para que sepan esos del procedimiento que ya tenemos en listos.
So please continue to ask your questions and we hopefully will be able to answer them at the end if we haven't already sent them in our presentation here. So we do want to let you know that visitors who come on campus, which is would be like any other LAUSD employee who is not on our campus regularly, so maybe they have to deliver something. This is important because they would need to follow all the same protocols. So they would have to answer their daily health screening questions with a daily pass. We would give them the temperature check and then they would allow to become on campus. Currently, right now, with the guidance from the LA County Department of Public Health, which could change, our district is currently not having parents volunteer on campus or parents come on campus. But that could change. As we know, our parents are great supporters of the school and offer a lot and can help us with certain areas right now, as we, if there's a staffing thing that we need. So we have always appreciated our parent volunteers. So the district is sort of still adjusting and waiting for that.
Importante saber que si nosotros tenemos, por ejemplo, otros empleados o otros empleados del distrito que vienen, por ejemplo, a dejar hacer trabajo en la escuela, ellos también tienen que hacer un chequeo diario y aún también los maestros del salón de escuela. Pero sabemos en este momento que ahora no tenemos las reglas para los voluntarios. Ahorita sabemos que los voluntarios no se van a dejar entrar en este momento, pero las reglas pueden cambiar. Sabemos que nosotros apreciamos tantos a nuestros padres voluntarios y aún sabemos que hemos ya escuchado de muchas personas que nos han dicho que queremos ofrecer nuestra ayuda. En este momento no se puede porque están siguiendo las reglas del Departamento de Salud del Condado de Los Ángeles, pero aún cuando cambien esas reglas podemos avisarles y tratar de usar más voluntarios para ayudarnos.
And this is important when you guys do make your decisions about in-person school, as we know that we have not been in school this year at all, and we do have young kids who haven't attended school before at our school. So this is something for you to consider, is that the parent won't be walking the child into our campus. The parent will have to say goodbye at the temperature check gate. So I do want you to consider just thinking about that. And there are things that you can do to prepare your kid. You can walk them to school now. I'm more than happy to say hi at the gate. So there are things we can do to help your child transition better, but it's something for you to consider when you choose in-person or virtual.
Otra cosa para considerar es que aún sabemos que hay muchos estudiantes que nunca han venido a nuestra escuela. Ellos no saben dónde está el salón de clase y tal vez para ellos no estén suficientemente preparados para estar en la escuela en persona. Aún como padres, ustedes pueden ayudarles a prepararlos para tal vez, porque van a tener que despedirse en la puerta. Y aún como maestra aún de antes de kinder y de pre-kinder, sé que muchas veces como nos encanta encaminar a nuestros estudiantes hasta el salón de clase. En estas consideraciones de la pandemia no es posible. Entonces es asegurando que tomar eso en cuenta cuando van a decidir si van a ir su estudiante virtualmente o en persona. And again, I was just sharing, as a former pre-K and kindergarten teacher, I understand, and as a mom, I understand how wonderful it is to be able to walk your child to class. Remember, this is pre-pandemic protocols, and so now we have to take that into account, especially when we're making our decision, to know that is something that we will not be able to do. They'll have to be walking to the gate only. And again, we can help with some of that preparation by practicing with them, but this is something that you'll have to keep in mind.
Yes. And we want to make this a transition that your child can do and feel well about it and feel good about themselves and go to school happy. And so we want to support you with that, right? So how can you help your child be prepared? So if you are going to be choosing in-person instruction, the important thing is that they will be required to take a COVID-19 test within a week of coming back to school. So it has to be within a week of coming to school. So if your child has not ever done a COVID test now, this is something that you may want to do right now, is to get them familiar with the COVID test. I'm going to show you a video in a minute. I'm going to put the link in the chat. It's a 1-minute video that's designed for young kids. It's a fun little dog. That's sort of an animation that shows them how the COVID test is in their nose and how to not be scared of it. If they haven't been going out in public, or they haven't been wearing a face mask, you want to get them familiar with that. You want to really remind them about maintaining social distance and having them practice washing their hands. So these are all things that you can do to support your child sort of getting prepared if you choose the in-person option.
Entonces es importante para los estudiantes, como padres, preparar a nuestros estudiantes para regresar a la escuela, si esa es la opción que escogemos. Uno es, los estudiantes tienen que programar una prueba de COVID. Para entrar, los estudiantes tienen que tener una prueba negativa de COVID entre una semana antes de venir a la escuela. Entonces, si no han tomado una prueba de COVID, eso es una buena oportunidad para que ellos lo tomen, para que tal vez le quiten esa ansiedad. Ya ves que a veces dicen, no, que me va a doler, lo demás. Ahorita le vamos a enseñar un video pequeño para que puedan usar para demostrarlo. También pueden también repasar cómo es. Deben de usar la mascarilla, tomar tiempo practicando cómo es que se lo ponen y cómo es que se cubren la nariz y la boca. También hablar sobre cómo mantener una distancia de 6 pies de otra persona para mantener la seguridad. Son estas cosas que pueden ser, y también practicar cómo es que lavar las manos con frecuencia y cómo es que tienen por cuánto tiempo. A veces sabemos que a veces les digo que canten la canción de feliz cumpleaños y ya cuando terminar, eso es lavar las manos. So again, even with hand washing, just reminding them, maybe teaching them the happy birthday song, and that's enough time. That's how long as they have to be washing their hands. And so just something or the ABC, the alphabet song, something else.
And when you take your daily pass, it isn't just your screening questions, it's asking you to commit to agreements. And so this is why you see the daily pass check here, is that when you do it, you're committing to this. You're committing to talking to your child about washing their hands. You're talking to them about being safe and 6 feet distance. So you're committing and agreeing to that.
Otra cosa del pase diario, no solamente es para preguntar sus que tienen de salud, también ustedes están se están manteniendo un acuerdo diciendo que usted va a hablar con su hijo sobre las mascarillas, sobre cómo mantenerse seguro, lavarse las manos, esas cosas. Entonces, en el pase diario es un acuerdo también que usted como padre está asegurando que van a implementar en su casa también.
And the LAUSD COVID-19 test is a nose swab. So it's not a mouth swab or a cheek swab. So you'll see the video, it is a nose swab. And so they kind of can self-do it if they're old enough. If the younger kids, the nurse will do it for them.
Lo que vamos a ver es un video. Vamos para el examen de la prueba de COVID. Vemos que se hace el examen a través de la nariz, no es que lo hacen a través de la boca. Y ahorita vamos a ver para darle idea.
And I do want to say, once we do, we screen the students with their daily screener through the daily pass, and we do their temperature check, then they will follow the pathway to a safe waiting area, where they will have a safe waiting area for their cohort, and where we will have, things on the ground that are 6 feet apart, where a student will go and stand and wait in an open outside area for their teachers to then pick them up. Then their teachers will escort them to their classroom with a 6 feet spaced apart line.
Entonces es importante ¿qué pasa cuando los estudiantes ya llegan a la escuela? Vamos a ver, no van directamente a la clase, van a ir dependiendo la hora en que llegan, una área de espera segura en un área afuera, al aire libre, y ahí van a esperar a su maestro. El maestro o maestra cuando llegan, van a llevarlos, van a formar líneas, 6 pies de distancia entre las personas en línea, y van a entrar al salón de clase. Cuando ellos están en el grupo, en un grupo, van a estar en un grupo seguro y un grupo específico para cada grupo, para que ellos estén en esa área de espera dedicado al grupo.
And for the COVID-19 testing to come back in person, it is required to come back in person with a baseline test. And then we're still waiting on guidance from the district, but based on the different tiers, right? So red tier, orange tier, yellow tier, the guidance on frequent testing is different. But currently for the red tier, testing would be weekly. So there would be a base test to come in, and then there would be weekly testing in the red tier. But if we change tiers, that testing could change.
Entonces, para los estudiantes, ellos necesitan una prueba de referencia, y ya después de eso las pruebas serían semanal. Entonces, pero esto es porque estamos ahora en el nivel rojo. Ya tal vez tenemos diferentes procedimientos si bajamos a otro nivel. Entonces, tal vez sería menos exámenes que tuvieran que tomar. Y aquí vamos a ver.
So we're going to watch a short video for parents, and then I'll also put in the chat. It's a 1-minute video with the safety dog that shows young kids like how the COVID test is like, to help them sort of feel out their little bit of fears about it.
Entonces aquí en la caja de chat vamos a poner un video pequeño para los padres, para que los demuestren, para que no se sienten.
Welcome.
Go ahead, Ms. Rios. Sorry, I was just getting it prepared.
Ansiedad, y demostrar cómo va el examen en la prueba de COVID.
To the Safe Steps to Safe Schools video for families. The following guidelines established for schools by the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are meant to help keep all staff, students, and visitors safe and healthy while on campus during the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's take the first step and get ready. To prepare for safe return to campus, let's start with practicing rigorous hand hygiene to get rid of germs and stay healthy. Always wash your hands with soap and water for a minimum of 20 seconds, and remind your children about proper hand washing to get them into the habit and help them if necessary. Use hand sanitizer to clean your hands when soap is not available. Put enough product on your hands to cover all surfaces and rub your hands together until they feel dry. This should take around 20 seconds. Do not rinse or wipe off the hand sanitizer before it dries. It may not work as well against germs. Since people can spread the virus before they know they are sick, minimize contact with others and keep at least 6 feet between people at all times. This is about 2 arms length away in both indoor and outdoor spaces. Another important way to stop the spread of COVID-19 is to wear a face mask. COVID-19 spreads easily through the air, and a face mask helps stop the virus from traveling. A face mask is required at school and whenever outside of your home for everyone age 2 and over. Make sure you are wearing your mask properly. Place your mask over your nose and mouth and loop it behind your ears or tie it behind your head, depending on the style of mask. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend wearing a mask with 2 or more layers to stop the spread of COVID-19. Wearing a face mask is not a substitute for social distancing and other prevention measures, such as washing your hands regularly. Before your child leaves home for school every day, another step is to get set. The Daily Pass is your one-stop shop for a safer return to campus. Families and students can use it to book COVID-19 test appointments, get test results, answer the daily health check screening questions at home, and receive a pass to enter a campus. Parents, you will need your Parent Portal account to get the Daily Pass. If you do not have a Parent Portal account, register at parentportalapp.lausd.net/parentaccess. Prior to leaving your home for school every day, conduct the daily health check. Remind your child to keep their mask on and maintain their social distance while in school. You will also need to ask your child if they feel well and check for a fever and other symptoms of COVID-19, which in children include fever, cough, vomiting, diarrhea, or shortness of breath. A person is considered to have a fever with a measured temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater, feels warm to the touch, or has a history of feeling feverish. You can use the daily pass to complete the symptom check at home. If your child has any of these symptoms, please keep them at home to recover for at least 10 days or as required by LA County Public Health. Your child must also stay home if they recently tested positive for COVID-19 or if they are under isolation or quarantine orders. You must also keep your child at home if they have been in contact with someone diagnosed with COVID-19 or if your healthcare provider informs you that your child is likely to have COVID-19. If your child recently tested positive or has been identified as a close contact, you will not be able to get a daily pass for your child until they are cleared by the district. Once your child is feeling well and has been cleared, your child can return to campus. To learn more about the public health requirements, please visit publichealth.lacounty.gov/coronavirus. It is important to have your child tested for COVID-19. LA Unified is providing free COVID-19 testing for all students. You can schedule your child's appointment at any testing site in the district. Tests are free, quick, easy, and your personal information will remain confidential. To learn more about the LA Unified testing program, please visit achieve.lausd.net/COVID testing. Use the daily pass to schedule an appointment for a COVID-19 test or visit achieve.lausd.net/COVID testing APPT. When public health officials say safe to open campuses for in-person instruction, schools will be ready for students to return. Upon daily arrival to campus, your child's temperature will be taken by a staff member. Your child will also answer a series of questions about symptoms and contacts. A check-in area for health screening questions will be in place with enough space to maintain privacy as your child answers questions related to their health and well-being. Keep your child's emergency contact information updated. Providing the school with up-to-date emergency contact information, including multiple contact options, is essential. If your child becomes sick while at school, they will be isolated from the rest of the campus community for immediate parent pickup. If your child does not pass the entry screening at the gate, they will not be allowed to enter the school and parents must take them home. While on campus, everyone aged 2 years and older is required to wear a face mask that covers the nose, mouth, and fits snugly against the sides of your face. While on campus, students will practice social distancing, staying at least 6 feet away from others at all times. Entrance and exit paths of travel are labeled to maintain 6 feet of distance between students in hallways to limit the crossing of paths. All throughout the campus, 6 feet of distance signage and floor markings will be used to help remind students about social distancing during class, breaks, and lunch periods. These reminders will help students comply with maintaining a 6-foot distance to protect themselves and others from the spread of illness. In all classrooms, furniture is set up so that students are 6 feet apart from each other and from staff. When possible, student activities would take place outdoors. When your child receives items such as food or materials for learning, social distancing is required. Students will be reminded to only eat their own snacks, and they may not share items such as pens, pencils, or other supplies. When your child visits the restroom, stalls and sinks will be labeled with reminders to maintain 6 feet
There you
of
are.
only small groups of students will be allowed in communal restrooms. Your child will be reminded at key times throughout the school day to practice good hand hygiene, regular hand washing with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Hand sanitizer will also be available in classrooms and throughout campus for your child to use with adult supervision. We look forward to seeing your child back on campus and want everyone to take safe steps to help stop the spread of COVID-19. LA Unified is following all applicable public health and safety protocols. Keeping safe and healthy is everyone's job.
Give me 1 second. There we go. So that video does do a good job of showing you what it will look like on campus. You can see that in lines, they'll be 6 feet apart, what the bathrooms look like, what the protocols are to come onto campus.
Y ahora lo que vimos es un poquito una demostración de cómo es que va a ser la escuela para comer, para estar cuando están en fila.
So this is where COVID testing will take place. So it is not on our campus currently. There is discussions for efficiency that down the road, if they have enough personnel, that it will actually occur on our own campus. But right now, our closest testing site is. If you have your camera on and you have yourself muted or unmuted, can you mute yourself so that we don't hear other noise?
I muted them.
Oh, thank you. So Mayberry Elementary is the closest school, but I know that our families come in from a lot of different areas for our dual language. So when you go online to create your COVID test, you can pick a school that's near you that has testing at it. So just look through and scroll to find the closest one to you.
Y ahora la escuela que nos queda más cerca, que ofrece pruebas de COVID, es la escuela Mayberry, pero sabemos que muchos de ustedes viven en diferentes áreas. Cuando busquen por programar su cita de COVID, pueden ver las diferentes escuelas que ofrecen. La escuela Mayberry es una de las escuelas más cerca.
So this is how you can stay in contact with us. This is our website where we have a lot of information. Our website has access to our social media, our YouTube page. We are recording this, so this is going to be put up on our YouTube channel. These are our school phone numbers, so we just added a second number, 661-4058. These are email addresses.
Ahora tenemos muchas maneras para mantenerse en contacto con nosotros. Tenemos nuestro sitio web que siempre tiene mucha información. Ahora hemos añadido otro número de teléfonos porque queremos asegurar que todos pueden comunicarse con nosotros. Entonces es 323-661-4058 y allí también está nuestro correo electrónico.
We did mention earlier, but if you came in late, we are also offering like a Q&A session tomorrow morning. So if you have like a specialized circumstance or a special question, or you just want to talk to us more about certain safety protocols or things like that, we are hosting this tomorrow morning. Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. And so here is the meeting ID. Passcode is Michel with a capital M, lowercase I, capital CHEL. So you might want to take a screenshot. Wednesday evening, our parent workshop for the district is doing this all over again with the district, and they're hosting it at 3. And then I do encourage you to listen to our superintendent update, as it also goes into bigger detail around like how this looks across the district. So these are all good resources for you.
And I added all of those in the chat. Entonces, en la caja de chat también aquí pueden tomar foto de esto. Hay diferentes oportunidades para hablar con nosotros personalmente. Ahorita vamos a tomar algunas preguntas y respuestas, pero si quieren hablar por algo especial que tienen, pueden unirse con nosotros de 8 a 9 de la mañana el miércoles. Ahí está el código y el enlace para hablar con nosotros un poquito, tal vez para contestar tal vez una pregunta personal. También se ofrece el Distrito Local Central. Está ofreciendo un taller de padres también que va a repasar estos recursos y cómo es eso, hablar un poquito más sobre el regreso a la escuela. Y esos miércoles de 8 a 9 con la señora Sakalarian y yo, y a las 3 de la tarde con el distrito. También les alentamos que por favor vean también el video de la actualización de el superintendente Buettner, que habla un poquito más sobre la reapertura de la escuela.
So we now see our goal was 2 hours. We were going to give you from 5 to 7. And so we have 20 minutes to go over those questions that you put in the chat. So our goal is to get through them or try to answer them the best we can. If we don't have the answers today, we will let you know that we will seek out the answers, and we're putting together a Q&A. So if we don't get to all your questions in these 20 minutes, please know that we have them in the chat. We're going to save the chat and we're going to create a Q&A. And you can also come on Wednesday morning to our drop-in and ask us questions then. So I do thank you for sitting through 1 hour and 40 minutes of this stretching. Maybe some of you are not feeling great like Mrs. Rios or myself. We got our COVID second doses yesterday, and so we're kind of having side effects. We're a little tired, but we wanted to do this for you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Ms. Rios, if you could just read the questions in the chat and we'll try our best to answer.
Y entonces ahora lo que vamos a hacer es, vamos a repasar las preguntas que tienen, aún si no, como les digo, pueden acabar de asistir con nosotros, entonces pueden venir el miércoles para agarrar más información. So the first question, are all teachers, bus drivers, principals required to get vaccinated, or can they opt out?
So no, our employees are not required to get vaccinated. So they can opt out if that is their personal preference or a medical preference. So right now it's just that they have to be offered the vaccine and have access to both doses before we return.
Entonces ahora no es que es un requisito para cada personal tomarse la vacuna, pero nos tenemos que ofrecérselo. Eso es tal vez una decisión personal. Will the weekly COVID testing for students be administered at Mitchell?
No, so currently the weekly COVID testing will not be administered at Mitchell Terrena. You as a parent can choose where to have that administered. Our local COVID testing school site is Mayberry Elementary.
Entonces, el examen de COVID que tienen que tomarse los estudiantes, ¿se va a dar en la escuela, Michel Terrena? La respuesta es no. Usted como padre puede escoger dónde es que van a tomar ese COVID. La que le queda más cerca sería Mayberry. A follow-up question, are students required to take COVID tests? If yes, you are required. Is it the nasal swab or something less invasive?
So if you choose for in-person instruction for your child, then yes, a COVID test is required to come on campus within a week before we start school. It is a nasal swab. You can also go ahead and get a COVID test for your child through your own insurance or your own clinic, and there's a place where you can upload those results.
Entonces la pregunta era si el examen de COVID es a través de la nariz y aún si es la de la escuela, si es, aún usted como padres tiene la opción de tomar ese examen o si quieren tomar un examen por su cuenta en otro lugar y después poner los resultados en el sitio donde programan su cita y ahí pueden poner los resultados. Another question was, when will we know if we keep or have to change teachers based on our decision?
So by Friday, March 19th, we should have everybody's preference. And please know that if we don't receive your preference, then your child will be virtual. Then what we will be doing as a school site is we'll be creating the cohorts. And then within maybe a week or so, we'll be able to let teachers and parents know what the cohorts look like and who the teacher is that you have. We are, again, prioritizing the best we can to keep students with their teachers, but it's based on math and numbers.
Okay. Entonces la pregunta es, ¿cuándo es que vamos a saber si nuestro hijo o hija va a quedarse con el mismo maestro? Dependiendo de la decisión que toman ustedes de quedarse virtualmente. Y aún la información sabemos que tenemos que, depende en los resultados que recibimos en las encuestas, el formulario que tiene que entregar el viernes. Si no lo llenan, van a ponerlos en clase virtual. Entonces es importante una designación, si no el distrito va a considerar que ustedes han decidido quedarse virtualmente. Ya después que tenemos todos los números, podemos hacer estos grupos y vamos a notificar a los padres. Otra cosa importante saber es que cada 2 semanas, en un tiempo dedicado, usted puede cambiar de opción. And it's also just a reminder that during this designated time in 2 weeks, you can decide to change your option as well, from virtual to in-person or in-person to virtual. Let's see, are students expected to do online instruction for the session that they are not attending in person? Essentially, is it 2 sessions a day, one online and one in person?
So it's not 2 sessions a day, it's 1 session. You either choose in person for your child or you choose virtual, and they are 3-hour sessions.
Entonces la pregunta es, ¿los estudiantes ahora tienen diferente opción de tener 3 horas en persona y 3 horas en línea? No. Ahora el modelo de instrucción son 3 horas solamente, o 3 horas en línea o 3 horas en persona. Will we know if the in-person teachers opted to take the vaccine or not?
So that is private confidential medical information. So we cannot share if an employee has taken the COVID test or not. So that's something that you do need to consider. If you or your family or your child is, you think it's a health risk, then you need to consider that when making your option, and maybe virtual may be the better option for your family.
You said COVID test, but you meant COVID vaccine.
Sorry, COVID vaccine. Sorry, yes. So we cannot share if an employee has taken the COVID vaccine or not. That is private, confidential medical information that we can't share. So if that is a challenge for your family or there's a health risk, then that's why the district is offering the virtual instruction for families in those cases.
Yeah. Vamos a saber si el maestro decidió tomarse la vacuna o sí o no. Y la respuesta es, bueno, nosotros no podemos compartir esa información porque es información personal de salud. Entonces, si ustedes piensan que tal vez su estudiante o su familia, su hijo tiene un riesgo de salud, entonces tienen esa opción de continuar con la instrucción virtual. If it's in person during the morning, is it virtual in the afternoon or vice versa?
So I think this question was already answered, but if you choose virtual, then you're always virtual. It's just a matter of if your virtual will be in the morning or if your virtual will be in the afternoon. If you choose in person, it will always be in person, but it's a matter of if your child is attending the in-person session or the afternoon session. So again, it's 1 3-hour teaching session. It's either in person or virtual. Your child could have an AM 3-hour session, or they could have a PM 3-hour session. And that is because we have to be able to provide enough instruction for all of our students who want the particular model. And so it's based on, LUSD staffing. So it's 3 hours either in person or 3 hours virtual.
Yeah. Y entonces la pregunta es saber que si los estudiantes, por ejemplo, perdón un momentito, deja ver. Vamos a saber si en la mañana ellos van a estar virtualmente enseñando y en la tarde va a ser en persona o de la otra manera, en persona en la mañana y virtualmente en la tarde. No sabemos, en este momento depende mucho de los resultados. Ahorita es números, pero si usted escoge estar virtual, va a ser virtual. Si escoge estar la enseñanza en persona, va a ser eso. Pero el horario no sabemos si va a ser de la mañana o de la tarde. To follow up on the last, will we know, again, we answered this one, will we know if our child's personal teacher have opted out? For ESY or Beyond the Bell programs, which is a supervision program, where do we fill out an application, or does last year's registration roll over?
So if your child needs daycare for the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., either AM or PM session, that is part of your parent survey that we're asking you to complete by this Friday. So it's all part of that parent survey, and you would check that you need daycare there.
El cuidado de niños, ¿se tiene que llenar una aplicación en particular o la registración que hicieron el año pasado todavía vale? No, ahora cuando completan el formulario que esperamos tenerlo el viernes, tiene esa información allí. Entonces allí tiene que indicar si quieren el cuidado de niño y por favor completen eso. Will the student have the same teacher they've had all year?
So our goal is to be able to have your child be with the same teacher they had all year, but we can't guarantee it. For example, we may have a classroom of 24 kids and 19 of them want in person. So for that teacher, the priority is in person. So those 19 students would be placed in 2 in-person cohorts, AM and PM. And the remainder of the 24 kids would then have to be reconfigured into a virtual class with another teacher. Or the opposite, most of the students want virtual, right? So the priority would be that the teacher would teach those students virtual, and the in-person students potentially would have to be reconfigured. So we won't know just yet if you will have your same teacher that you had all year, and that's virtual or in person.
¿Se sabe si mi hijo o hija va a tener el mismo maestro que ha tenido todo el año? En momento no, porque se basa en los números. Por ejemplo, si hay una clase de 24 estudiantes y 19 eligen estar en persona, entonces en ese momento se divide esos 19 en persona mitad y mitad, entonces, y los otros 5 estudiantes que pasan con ellos vamos a tener que reorganizar y buscar otra clase virtualmente para que ellos se unan con esos, o puede ser el opuesto si la mayoría escogen virtual y son 5 que no participan en persona, ¿cómo vamos a hacer eso? Yeah. Will there be an AM daycare?
So the daycare starts at 8 a.m. So there will not be any daycare before 8 a.m. like there used to be.
Okay. Entonces sabemos que el cuidado de niños empieza a las 8 de la mañana. Entonces el cuidado de niños en el año pasado y años anteriores hemos tenido cuidado de niños ya empezando tempranito, ya a las 6:30. Ya no, durante este modelo solamente empieza a las 8 de la mañana. Is this Monday schedule specific to Mitchell Terena? Is there any way to have Monday stay with the online schedule rather than offering students fewer hours of instruction?
That is a great suggestion, but this is a schedule that is agreed upon by the UTLA bargaining unit members and our district. So that is a schedule for our whole district. It is not a Mitchell Terena schedule. So Mondays will be slightly shorter for all students in person and virtual to accommodate the professional development day.
Entonces, están hablando sobre el horario específico del lunes. Quieren saber si eso fue desarrollado por la Escuela de Mitchell Terena o es que hay otra manera de que los lunes podemos tener 3 horas de instrucción completas en vez de tener media hora menos. Y la respuesta es que el horario fue un acuerdo del distrito y el sindicato de maestros, y ahora sabemos que hicieron eso para asegurar que tenemos suficiente tiempo para taller para los maestros, para darles la información que necesitan. Entonces, eso es ahora el horario no es algo que nosotros podemos cambiar. How will dual language instruction work now? Will the students still go between their Spanish and English teacher like before?
So yes and no. So our dual language teachers, yes and no. Our dual language teachers will our dual language students will be able to see both teachers. We just have not determined how that will look yet. Will it be on a weekly basis? So they may have their English teacher for a whole week and then their Spanish teacher for a whole week. But they will be receiving instruction in both languages. Not sure if it will be within the 3-hour day because of the safety of switching cohorts and having the ability to safely clean in between.
Yeah. Entonces ahora la pregunta es, ¿cómo vamos a hacer el procedimiento para la instrucción del programa dual? Los estudiantes van a ir de un maestro de inglés y después el maestro de español como antes, y ahora los estudiantes sí les vamos a decir que van a recibir instrucción en inglés y también en español, pero ahora no sabemos el modelo completo porque tenemos que tener en cuenta si de no exponer los estudiantes con otros estudiantes cuando están cambiando de clase. Entonces tenemos diferentes modelos que estamos considerando, sean de cambios semanal o diarios. Entonces eso, cuando tenemos la información, le podemos dar más. Are those 3 hours split between English and Spanish?
So again, this is to be determined. We're still working out those details with with the multicultural education department and with our teachers. But most likely, it may be a model where they're a week on with one language and a week off. So the 3 hours would not be split.
Entonces la pregunta es si las 3 horas de instrucción van a ser divididas entre español y inglés. Y ahora hemos hablado sobre diferentes modelos, pero en este momento estamos buscando diferentes modelos. Tal vez serían cambios semanal. Entonces no podemos darle con seguridad hasta que se decide eso. Okay, again, this is another question about dual language. And again, how will the dual language portion work if the kids cohort with one teacher? And again, we're at this point in time, we are not, this is to be determined, and as soon as we have that information, we will share that. La pregunta era cómo es sobre el programa dual y cómo van a hacer si solamente tienen un maestro, y eso le damos, la información va cuando ya esté disponible le vamos a dar esa información. What's the maximum number of kids in a cohort?
So for in-person, the maximum number of students in a cohort could be up to 16, but it's also based on the safety of the classroom and if we can fit that many desks safely 6 feet apart. Most of our school classrooms are 12 to 14, and so that's most likely what we will have in a cohort. For in-person cohorts, they could be K to 3, could be up to 24 kids in a virtual cohort, and our 4th and 5th could be up to 31 kids in a virtual cohort.
Okay. La pregunta era, ¿cuántos estudiantes pueden estar en un grupo? Bueno, depende. Si están en persona, eso tenemos la guía de que solamente que el máximo puede ser 16 estudiantes, pero para nuestra escuela, tomando en cuenta el tamaño de los cuartos, solamente podemos tener 12 a 14 estudiantes en un salón de clase debido al tamaño del salón. Pero virtualmente pueden tener de kinder a segundo, pueden tener 24 estudiantes en manera virtual y los estudiantes en persona, como dijimos, pueden ser de 12 a 14 estudiantes. Could one teacher teach? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I see a question that I do want to make sure we answer.
Sure.
Will families have any choice in whether they are in an AM or PM cohort?
Okay.
So I do wish that I could be able to take parent requests if they want an AM or PM cohort, but it's very hard for us to take all the parent requests with all the working parts. So I do want you to know that we're prioritizing and filling up in person for AM. So if you choose in person, the likelihood is most likely that it will be an AM slot, unless we have a lot of students who choose in person and then we have to make some PM slots. I do wish that I could accommodate everyone's schedules, but it's a lot of working parts, and that's why the district is offering daycare, and that is why the district is offering virtual as well.
Yeah.
You have to decide what's best and works for your family.
Yeah.
You're the only one that knows that.
Yeah. La pregunta era si pueden tomar ustedes en cuenta, nosotros podemos tomar en cuenta nuestras preferencias si queremos estar por la mañana o por la tarde. Y ahora porque tenemos que tomar tanto en cuenta, por ejemplo, si hay hermanos en diferentes clases, aún realmente nosotros tenemos que basar en poner. La preferencia es si los estudiantes que están enseñando, que quieren la enseñanza en persona, de tomar ellos en la mañana en persona. Entonces, esa es la prioridad. Si usted, por ejemplo, pero sabemos que están ofreciendo cuidado de niño para tener la mañana y en la tarde, y entonces sabemos de que que la prioridad, si quieren ponerlos en persona, con más probabilidad que ellos empiecen en la mañana. Pero como decimos, tenemos cuidado para el grupo de mañana y el grupo de la tarde.
And I'm going to take one last question that I think is important for us to answer, and then I see that we're at 7 o'clock, so I want to honor everyone's time. We will be offering the Q&A session Wednesday morning from 8 to 9. There is also a 3 o'clock on Wednesday with the district. And we're going to be putting out a Q&A. So if your question didn't get answered, please come to one of our Q&A sessions or wait for our Q&A.
Our FAQ.
FAQ.
Yeah.
My brain is very tired.
Okay.
I have a fever, so. But the question is, will there be outside activity, recess, or is it just classroom? And that is a great question. So our students will be receiving a 20-minute recess in cohort A in person, and then the cohort B in person will also receive a 20-minute recess. It's going to look very different than what recess looked like before, but kids will be allowed to go outside on the yard. They will have a safe space to be and play. So there will be games and activities that we can support and lead with our personnel. And just like teachers have always done, teachers do brain breaks in the classroom. They get kids up and do moving. We know developmentally that kids are not going to sit for 3 hours in their seat and learn. And that's just not going to happen. So we know what our teachers are very well-versed in student needs, and they recognize it, and they will have fun brain breaks and different activities. So kids are not just sitting for the 3 hours. And PE still occurs. So there will be PE, which can occur outside. So we will have options for outdoor activities and recess breaks.
La pregunta era si los estudiantes se van a quedar, por ejemplo, hay oportunidades para que ellos vayan afuera, tener recreo. Sabemos como maestros, como profesionales dedicados con estudiantes que sabemos por el desarrollo de los estudiantes que ellos no pueden quedarse tres horas sentaditos en un salón de clase. Entonces es importante. Nosotros vamos a tener tiempo de tener educación física afuera, pero aún tomando en cuenta que no va a ser igual como antes de la pandemia, donde los estudiantes jugaban en otras maneras. Entonces tenemos que ser más creativos de cómo pueden tener poder tener movimiento y correr, pero sin mantener los protocolos de seguridad. Esa es nuestra última pregunta, pero sabemos que toda esta información vamos a ponerlo en un documento para las preguntas que son que hemos recibido con las respuestas que tenemos en el momento y aún darle la información como lo tenemos. So we will be again providing an FAQ, and again we also are hosting our administrative office hours just to try to answer your question, in addition to the workshop that's being provided by LD Central. I need to say that in Spanish too. Entonces, para recordarles que vamos a tener horas de oficina para que si quieren hacerlos una pregunta que tal vez no contestamos o quieren compartir a su caso personal, pueden estar de 8 a 9 el miércoles con nosotros para contestar esas preguntas. También vamos a poner todas estas preguntas en un documento, y también el Distrito Local Central el miércoles a las 3 de la tarde van a ofrecer un taller. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
So I do want to thank there's about 60 something of you that waited. We had 130 in the beginning. 60 of you made it through these 2 hours. We know that it's a hard thing for parents to have to make a choice in a week and not having all the information. So we hope that we provided you with more to be able to make an informed choice with what we have. We know it's not perfect. Throughout this pandemic, as a school, we've aimed to provide you with really good instruction, and I have lots of faith in our teachers that really good instruction will continue for in-person or virtual. But it is shifting. The virtual model is shifting. The in-person model is shifting. And I just very much appreciate our teachers and very much appreciate our kids and you as parents. I love our community. There's nobody else I'd rather do this with than Mrs. Rios and our teachers and you guys. It's been a wild year, but we've survived and we will get through this change too. And so thank you for sticking with us. And I hope that we have more information within a few weeks to come. It's very fluid. And my goal is to give you the information as soon as we get it. So, some of these questions we couldn't answer today, especially stuff about daycare, stuff about special education. So we'll get the answers as they come and we'll provide them to you. So we thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, y aquí estamos para servir. Sabemos que ha sido un año difícil, pero aquí estamos para apoyarnos uno al otro. La información que tenemos disponible ahora, vamos a recibir la información y darse las informaciones. Muchas gracias a todos.
And I put in the chat the Rocket Dog video. It's about 1 minute. It's very cute. If you have a student or a child who's a little bit skeptical about the COVID test, especially the young ones, it's a really cute video. So copy and